Hello, it's Ryan here. Just recording another vlog episode. I'm just sitting by the river. It's a beautiful view, it's a beautiful day. I won't pan the camera around to show you because it's just my phone is propped up behind the steering wheel here and it's hard to get it exactly in the right spot, so I don't want to go through that again. So yeah, just trust me, it looks nice out there. It's November 10th. Tomorrow's Remembrance Day. I got my poppy on. Yeah, I'm meeting somebody in the area, so I thought, since I'm a bit early, I'll just record a short vlog. I want to talk today about Meniere's disease. I hope that bright light isn't screwing things up too much. Oh well, whatever. The audio is more important than the picture, so I'm not going to worry about it. Hopefully the audio is good. I want to do a short vlog episode and just talk about Meniere's disease. I've talked about it a few times before, but it's something I think about a lot just because I have it. And I am always learning new ways to articulate what it's like. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what it's like to live with Meniere's disease. And most people who have heard of Meniere's disease, most people haven't, but most people who have heard of Meniere's disease know about the acute symptoms. The ones that are very obvious, and the two main obvious things that point to Meniere's disease is vertigo. You get regular bouts of vertigo. Now, everybody might have experienced vertigo before in their life when all of a sudden you just feel dizzy and things start spinning. So some people have that because of some, I don't know, something they ate or a symptom of another thing like a flu or anything where it's just like maybe an ear infection. It's a balance thing. It affects your vestibular system, the balance in your inner ear. Now, somebody with Meniere's disease, it's kind of a chronic thing. It happens very regularly. You just regularly get bouts of vertigo. And the other thing is hearing loss. So I'm now completely deaf in my right ear from this. So those two things, if you're going deaf on one side, or even both sides, which would be sad, or at least one side, and you're getting a lot of vertigo, it's probably Meniere's disease. So those are the obvious symptoms, the big symptoms. But what I want to talk about is what people don't talk enough about, or they don't understand, is in between the vertigo attacks. That is difficult to cope with, and that takes some time to get used to. And it's tough because a lot of people, they see me when I'm not having an attack, and they say, well, you look fine. It doesn't look like anything's wrong with you. And that's good. It's good that I look okay. But it's an invisible disease, right? Nobody can tell. You can't tell by looking at somebody whether they have Meniere's disease. And you might look at them and say, hey, you're fine. And I'm okay with that if somebody says, hey, you're fine. Where I'm sometimes not okay is when you're not at work. You can't go to work that day and somebody sees you and they're like, hey, you look okay, you look fine, why aren't you working? And right now I'm on short-term disability, and I'm getting that, it's just like, you look fine, why aren't you at work? And I got that from my boss, and he means well. The manager of where I work, he says, I would say get better, but you look fine. So I want to talk about that. If somebody were to ask me, how often do you feel the symptoms of Meniere's disease? I would say 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all the time, I feel the effects of Meniere's disease. And people with Meniere's disease, I'm sure you can relate. People without Meniere's disease, I'm sure you cannot relate. So yeah, 24/7, I feel the effects of Meniere's disease. Yeah, even when I'm sleeping, sometimes I get a vertigo attack while I'm sleeping. It's really weird. And so people say, well, how can you function if you're getting vertigo all the time? I'm not talking about vertigo, but you feel it. You feel a general unease is what I'm talking about. It's kind of like if I could if I can compare it to like being on the ocean, like say you're, I don't know, surfing or paddleboarding or something like that, kayaking. You're on the ocean, and there are calm days and there are rough days, but you know you're on the ocean. If you're like balancing on a paddleboard, you know where you're at. You know at any moment you can fall off. So you always have to be aware and try to keep your balance, and that's where I'm at. I've learned how to keep my balance very well because I've had this disease for, I don't know, like 15 years now. I know how to keep my balance. I've adjusted, but that doesn't mean the disease is gone. I've just learned how to cope. So it's those in-between times where people say, hey, you look fine, but they don't know that I'm just hiding it. Now, I didn't like to talk about this. I kind of kept it a secret. I talked about it a little bit, but I didn't want to talk about it so much. I downplayed it. I didn't let on how much this was affecting me, just because I didn't want to be told what I could and couldn't do. For example, the last 5 years I've been a truck driver, and I was worried that I'd lose my license. So I've had a medical done in August, because I turned 40 years old and you're required to take a driver's medical when you're 40. And I failed the medical because of Menieres disease and the vertigo. Particularly, they were worried about the vertigo. So I got nothing left to lose, so I'm going to talk about it more. And hopefully I can help other people, because I've learned how to cope. I can drive a truck fine, I think. But I understand, there's rules and whatever. So if I can't drive a truck ever again, that's fine. But I remember it affected me more when I wasn't driving a truck. That is my productivity in other businesses. I own a web development business, and it affected me more. Because the in-between state, in between the attacks, we have what we call brain fog, where in between the attacks, it's hard to think. You lose, for me anyways, my long-term memory. I wasn't as sharp as I should be, and it was very different feeling for me because, well, not bragging or anything, but just the way it is. Like I'm a quick learner. I've always been able to have a very good memory, and I would read something and I would retain facts and figures like a sponge. I've learned new skills really fast all through my life. I was pretty sharp. But when this Menieres thing started, it was like I couldn't recall the name of my favorite band. You're sitting there and it's like, oh, I want to listen to that music. What was that? That band I really like. And I couldn't think of the name. And that's how bad it got. So here I am, a web developer. You're supposed to remember these. You're supposed to learn technology and programming languages and that. And I would sometimes sit in front of the screen. I would just stare at the screen, think, okay, I got to do some coding here, and just sitting there staring at the screen. 20 minutes would go by, half an hour, 45, an hour would go by, and I did nothing. So I got to find something else to do. And it was affecting me, the kind of, I say, the in-between symptoms. Now, obviously, the acute symptoms, the vertigo, you're pretty useless at that point. I remember one time I was meeting a client, a web development client, in downtown Vancouver, and this is the only time where I saw that my ailment wasn't invisible to other people, because I started getting a vertigo attack, and I was pretending. I was talking to this girl at a coffee shop, a client at a coffee shop, and I was pretending that everything was fine, and she's like, "What's up with your eyes?" And my eyes were shifting. She said my eyes kept shifting from one side to the other, just constantly, and I didn't even know that. But the room was spinning around me, and I was trying to get through this meeting and pretend nothing was happening. And then I had to admit, like, oh, I'm not feeling too good. I'm feeling really dizzy. I need to stop this meeting now. And so I walked out of the coffee shop, and I went into an alley, and I just kind of slept. And the ambulance came, and they put me in the ambulance and took me to the closest hospital there. And the doctor, you know, after I rested for like an hour, maybe 2 hours, the doctor came in and said, "So how long have you been an intravenous drug user?" And I think you got the wrong chart, or you're just assuming that it just because I passed out in an alley. And it's safe to assume down there in that part of Vancouver that, you know, if you're passed out in an alley, it's because it was drugs, right? But no, for me, it was Meniere's disease. That is one time. I can name. I got a lot of stories to tell about different times where this disease has affected me in acute ways. But when you have that vertigo, the vertigo would subside, and in between those times, you know, in between the bouts of vertigo, it doesn't, just because you don't have vertigo anymore doesn't mean you're all there. Like I said, you're balancing on a paddle board in the middle of the ocean, and the waves might not be buffeting you too much. It might be calm, but you still know you're on the paddle board. And every once in a while, waves would come in, and they come in sets, just like on the ocean. And I would say that that's the acute vertigo attacks, those sets of waves that come in. But that's where we differ. Different people who suffer from Meniere's disease, some people get those waves, the typhoons of life or vertigo, more frequently than others. Some people get it every day, and my heart goes out to those people. I've never had it bad that I would have it every day. When I would have sets come in, I might have it, you know, vertigo every couple of weeks, or at the most 2 times a week, and I might go through that like maybe 4 or 5 times, and then it could be like 6, 7, 8 months where there's no symptoms, and I'm symptom free, the acute symptoms, but I still, like I said, every once in a while I would get that brain fog. So I don't know. I hope that explanation. I'm going to say more about this in the future, but I hope some people can relate. I'm going to put Meniere's disease in the title of this vlog, and I'm going to put it on YouTube in the hopes that some people could find my channel, and people with Meniere's disease, or know people with Meniere's disease, and they want to know more about it. Yeah, there's the vertigo, but it's the in-between is where it's difficult. So right now in my life, if I can talk about myself, and the dilemma I have right now is, what do I do right now? Because I've lost my license, so I can't drive trucks anymore. So I'm getting a lot of offers, job offers, to work in the office in different trucking companies, and also the same trucking company, working in dispatch and working in safety. So that's my dilemma now. Should I take those jobs? Because to be honest, I'm more worried about those jobs than I am driving trucks. Hard to believe. I know, it's weird. Some people think, wow, you have vertigo, you shouldn't be driving trucks at all. I get it. I understand your concern. But with truck driving, especially long haul trucking, this doesn't apply to, you know, say city trucking, but long haul, regional, whatever, where you're in control of your hours, I can cope with the symptoms well, because, you know, if I'm feeling it that day, that morning, I'll start later. And if I'm feeling the symptoms later in the day, I'll stop early, and then I'll make up for it the next day. And I did this for the past 5 years. I was doing this, and no one noticed, right? I was very productive. Got driver of the year 2 years in a row with our company. So it was fine. I was safe. I was good. But if I was working inside in an office and the symptoms started, well, what do I do? There's really nothing I could do. Yeah. So I'm gonna say a little bit more about this later in the day, because I have a lot more to share. But like I said, I have to meet a friend in the area, and I'm coming up to my 15-minute limit on YouTube. I think I have a 15-minute limit, so if you hung in there and listened to my ramblings, thank you.